Welcome back to a new episode of Your Stories. This is a series of video interviews in a podcast kind of style where I interview members of the TMS and chronic pain community, people that I've either met through the support groups or that have reached out to me directly that would like to share their insight into their own recovery journey. Just kind of insights in terms of light bulb moments that they may have had, or breakthrough milestones that they may have experienced, or indeed full on 100% recovery from all of their symptoms, how they did it, what they used, what kind of specialists they saw, if they did, stuff like that. Today's interview is a special one because Karen was one of Dr. Sarno's patients. So she's one of the very few people that I know that actually met Dr. Sarno back in the day, many moons ago, but she was also a patient of his for many years and kept in contact with him. So she has some really beautiful insight into like how he was as a doctor and stuff, which I found really fascinating. So I'm going to let her in the room now. She can tell her story herself. Let's see. Hey, Karen.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Where are you joining us from today?
From New York, Long Island.
I already knew that, but anyways.
Yeah.
I love your accent. I get all the time as well that when people speak to me from the States, they think my accent's cute. I think the American accent's really cute. So we're both going to have a bit of fun with this one. So I just gave a little intro into the fact that you were one of Dr. Sarno's patients originally when back in the day, but I haven't given any more insight really into your story. So why don't you just take it away and bring us back to kind of where things started for you, what sort of symptoms you were experiencing, and yeah, just tell us how it went for you, basically.
Okay. And I'll probably go back and forth and fill in.
Yeah.
So the first physical symptom, and actually I just remembered this, I actually had my tonsils out when I was 6. And I remember being in the hospital, this was in the 60s.
Right.
And I just remember, and this is kind of like buried memories that really just dawned on me recently. And I remember the little girl next to me didn't cry when she got her finger pricked for blood, and I was hysterical. I mean, it didn't hurt, but the fear. My parents were standing there, had to leave. I'd be in the hospital for several days. And I remember my mother actually taking care of me because she really wasn't the one when we were little to go to when we didn't feel well. And so then when I was 12, I remember I was going to my first bar mitzvah, and I woke up with this huge eczema patch. And again, I remember my mother kind of paying attention. So I think that only now I'm having revelations of how I got my mother's attention. So backtrack about my childhood. So my real mother, my birth mother, committed suicide when I was 2. So, I was in the womb of a really depressed woman. She went to a hospital when I was 9. So then she wasn't around. I've heard stories of things that went on that I think now are stored in my body. And then when I was 20, she came home after 10 months in the hospital, and then she committed suicide. And even a therapist once said, for a woman to do that with their children home, usually the mothers go away from the home, is just a real break in, psychosis or whatever.
Yeah, makes sense.
So growing up, we always knew about her. We referred to her as Martha. That was her name. My father remarried. The woman who he married adopted me. She was very much my mother. I would always grow up saying, I wish Arthur were here. I wish Arthur were here. We never knew how she died. And then at 17 years old, I woke up with this searing headache in my left eye and went to my mother, and she gave me a Darvon. Those were the pills that were popular in the 70s.
And is that a painkiller?
Yes, yeah, really strong. And I just remember I slept all day. And again, I didn't realize this till one of Nicole's recent podcasts about how subconsciously I got my mother's attention and nurturing.
Right.
And it was very nurturing to sleep in her big king bed in those days.
Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely.
Yeah. And then, so I suffered with headaches. I took what was called Furanol, again, very strong. I don't even know if it's around these days. And then when I was 19, I was home from college. I actually just started to really like my mother. And I almost, it was like finally she was cool, she was pretty. We spent this amazing day where we went to a show and we went shopping, and I'll never forget her heels and her dress. And she said, is my leg dragging? And we thought she was a hypochondriac, and she was always complaining and she was always tired. And I just remember saying, Ma, you're like, stop being so, hypochondriac.
Yeah.
And we lived in Manhattan at the time, and my parents, I just kind of was like, she's so cool. And I loved being with her for the first time ever. And the next morning I woke up, I was home from college, and I woke up to this blood-curdling scream. She woke up paralyzed. So it turns out she had MS, and that back again those days, there weren't as many treatments now. She also, I think, just gave into it. So I kind of witnessed all of that. I then was in college, and I just had severe headaches, and I was angry and, partying and self-medicating, and never did anything about the headaches. Didn't have my mother really available anymore. I mean, she was alive, she was in a wheelchair, and she was just totally out of it. Then moving right along, I was not in college, I was 30 or 29, and I was sitting at a restaurant, and all of a sudden I got this severe pain in my back. And for the next 3 years, went to a chiropractor 3 times a week. I don't even know if I ever went to a MD. And
you never had like a diagnosis then, I guess, for that.
Right. Yeah. And then 3 years at the chiropractor, and I remember saying I had been in therapy when I was 24. I found out how my real mother died. And I remember my first instinct was it felt almost like gossip. And I felt like it was no big deal. I was only 2. It didn't affect me. My therapist even pointed out that I would smile when I would talk about it. So again, now, I mean, this is relevant because of how I denied it and, things that were in my body and trapped. So I said to my therapist, I'm so angry and I had so much rage. I said, I think the pain is all my rage. And I think it's lodged, because I use the word lodged, in my back.
It's amazing that you could pick that up.
Right. And it, now at 59 years old, it's like, I am so instinctual, back then I didn't trust these things. Now, of course, you get knowledge. And then this is no accident. About 2 days later, I heard about Dr. Sarno. Kind of no accident, right as I thought that the rage was lodged in my back.
How did you find out? Sorry, how did that happen?
My boss's father, who we were all very close, and I guess my boss, relayed the info to his father, and his father had just gone to Sarno or heard about Sarno.
Right.
And I didn't even question it. To me, the minute I heard what Sarno, how he worked, and it was like, of course, right?
Yeah.
So
you already kind of knew that, especially because Sarno focused a lot on rage and that specific emotion, right?
Exactly. And I remember going to Sarno, and for anyone watching this, if they know him, he had this very New York way, short man. I wouldn't use the word nurturing to describe him. He was kind of gruff, very, very matter of fact.
Right.
But in that, there was something nurturing. He just was so confident about his practice and what he felt. It was like,
black and white, right?
Right. I don't care.
I like that.
And he asked me about my life, and You know, he's wearing the white coat, which is that theory about how we trust doctors.
Yep.
And he said, you are a classic case. He never did x-rays. He said, you're a classic TMS case. And my backache went away very soon thereafter.
Amazing. Did he prescribe anything to you then in that visit?
No, he did his 2 lectures. The first was about the science and the second was the psychology. And very soon after that, my backaches went away. And then, you know, I had a journey of all these other symptoms, and I believed that, you know, he would say, well, it's the brain's way of keeping you diverted. It's just going to pop up elsewhere. And it didn't click for me until actually, and I'll get to it, finding Nicole a year ago. So for the next 30 years, 20 some odd years, I suffered, pains would come and go, and I would call Dr. Sarno. And I remember the first one that came after the backache was TMJ, went to every dentist, you know, and he would say what he would say, and the TMJ would go away.
Sarno would say that, you mean?
Right. Yeah. I would call him. Once you're a patient, you're always a patient.
Amazing.
So I would just call him. He'd get right on the phone. He would say something reassuring, and that pain would go away.
Amazing.
And then the next, I don't know what pains the next were, and he referred me to, she's in New York, Dr. Arlene Feinblatt, and she runs these groups. And I went to her for 6 weeks, and whatever the pains were went away. And again, so forth and so on. And one was kind of a funny one. I had lived in Manhattan and never had to commute to work. And then when I moved to Long Island, it's a long commute. And I remember dreading it so much.
Right.
My toes were, I couldn't even bend my toes.
Wow. And I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. Well, now I see, I think I was so angry about having to commute. And I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to wear heels all the time. And I was very big into heels, and I went to podiatrist, and they were alarming and said, you must have surgery right away. You won't be able to walk in 15 years, you know, and I called Sarno, and he said, I'll never forget, hogwash, put your heels back on. And my toe has been fine ever since.
I love that. I think I would have absolutely loved him.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't wear heels anymore, but, you know, I just, and it's funny because now when my toes bother me, I laugh at it. You know, when I started walking, I'll go for walks on the beach and my toes will hurt. And I just know maybe I don't want to walk on the beach or I don't want to exercise.
Right.
So,
so what were the other,
sorry. Yeah, go.
I was just going to say, what were some of the other symptom imperatives that came up for you around that time that you're aware of that were probably TMS, just to give a little bit more insight to see if people will resonate with that, you know?
Right. So at this point, it was, you know, the headaches, which I never realized, TMJ, the toe, allergies were horrible.
Right.
Which led me to my TMS therapist. So again, I had just moved in with my now husband. I never lived with anyone. I didn't understand why a happy occasion would be stressful.
Wow.
You know, living with someone. And, you know, it's not easy just even in new relationships and figuring each other out. And I called Sarno and he referred me to a TMS therapist in New York. I went to her for the next 9 years and the allergies would go away. And I realized that the allergies were every morning when I get in the shower, they would be out of control. And she and I, just like the headaches, were always, I'd wake up with them. Mm-hmm. And to this day, when I do get one, that's the way in which it manifests.
Right.
So they're almost like conditioned response, I think.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So the allergies went away. She would say, you know, things that I guess didn't register. You know, you hear things from different people at different times. So Nicole's tone or delivery resonated, but my therapist used to tell me I was very suggestible. Mm-hmm. And I was so vigilant particularly with my relationship, because back to my mother committing suicide, I had such intense fear of abandonment.
Yeah, of course.
And it was so deep. And before I met my husband, I would always attract men who were emotionally unavailable because they would prove me right and leave.
Right. Well, no wonder you were stressing out when you moved in with your partner then, if you're thinking this commitment is equally frightening
Yes. Yeah.
as
He
abandonment.
would say, you're not going to push me away. And I mean, it's amazing he's stuck, thank
I
God,
love that.
Yeah. And I just didn't trust love. And, and where was I? So the TMS therapist
Therapist, yeah.
and the suggestible and the vigilant and very vigilant, like intensely so on my
Yeah, same.
relationship and constantly testing him. Does he love me? Does he love me? And then the headaches were always there. They never went away. I self-medicated. I used to be a big pot smoker. I was a bit of a drinker. And when my husband said to me one day, and he was never, saying, don't do this, but he just said, maybe you only drink when you're happy. Why? And so, I mean, that's been huge. So I never drink now. If I am anxious or sad, I really, for the
Right.
first time, would rather just sit with my sadness.
Right.
So yeah, and there was something else that Nicole's really helped. So then I had, and it's interesting because all of my ailments or symptoms were exactly what my father had. And I think, I was so attached to him. And maybe at some level, I liked, that I had sniffles like him, even though his sniffles grossed me out.
Yeah, I mean, like what you said about being really suggestible. I think that I've heard this quite a lot in this community, that if you're like, some people don't go on the support groups, for example, because they will end up getting symptoms of what they're reading about other people have symptoms, because that's really seems to be a bit of a thread in this community, doesn't it? That, you talk about your back pain, suddenly mine starts hurting.
Right.
So perhaps there's an element of that.
Definitely. I had a friend that we would talk at night and she would tell me about her friend's ailments and it would freak me out and spook me. And I would, I couldn't hear it. And I don't think she was quite getting like, please, I can't hear this. Yeah. So I just stopped talking on the phone at night. Now, though, again, with Nicole's knowledge, I feel, so strongly, I'm proof of, I really feel like I'm such a success story. And it doesn't mean I never have pains, but I know how I have the tools to turn them off. And and which is, because I used to think, what am I going to do if Dr. Sarno dies? What do I do? I felt very alone. I was the only one that had this. And so this community, it's like, gosh, like so many, we're all like, we're not alone. And we're not crazy.
And you've seen this from the day when none of this really existed online, or there was a few books and stuff, and that was kind of it, right? There wasn't any number of different resources like there are now.
Yeah, there was only Dr. Sarno. So I just, bow down to Nicole. She's just
she's phenomenal.
And so then the other symptom that was just like my father is I got married late. I was mid-40s. And one day my friend said, you're limping. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it was interesting. I don't know if the limp started before the pain, but I had this like really bad waddle, just like my father. And then I had severe hip pain. And I went to Dr. Sarno and he said it's TMS. And then it got really bad. I couldn't walk. Now, it did coincide with, things that were going on in my marriage. My father was very sick.
Right.
And it was so bad. I would go to work and I wouldn't even get up from my chair that was 10 feet away because I couldn't walk. And it was horrible. And I then went to the doctor that took over Sarno's practice. And I had never had x-rays at this point. I begged this doctor to give me the x-rays. He really was pretty adamant that it was TMS. And then I went for the x-rays And he called me the next morning and he said, well, I'm not sure. So he was kind of on the fence whether I would need a hip replacement. I was 50 at the time, or 51. And the minute he said he wasn't sure, I called and I got a surgeon and special surgery, and I got a hip replacement.
What was the diagnosis then for your hip that they gave you?
Severe arthrosis. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what it meant, but I mean, I had so many years, and what's interesting, and I didn't remember this till recently, the minute I woke up from surgery, I remember not hating my real mother for the first time ever.
Wow.
I curse her. I hated her. How did she abandon me? And, I just felt compassion for her for the first time in my life.
Wow, that's mad.
Yeah. And I know, and all these revelations, it's like, I can't believe I'm remembering that. So she was an artist, and we have all her paintings in our home. And I was torn. Yeah. I would look at the paintings and kind of curse her, and, just really
conflicted kind of relationship in your mind, right?
Exactly. Oh, exactly. And so first time I didn't have any anger. My TMS therapist was pretty against the hip replacement. Looking back, maybe I didn't need it. I don't regret doing it at all. In the meantime, I've had, again, all the symptoms, never had back pain. And this is really interesting since. Headaches still there. Hip pain finally gone. I had fallen a couple of years prior. I dislocated my left shoulder. That was, very traumatic. Yeah. But then 3 years after my hip replacement, I fell and dislocated my hip. And then it happened a second time. So once it happens, it's going to happen again. So I had to go for a second surgery. But all of this, I felt like my anxiety was through the roof. I was scared to breathe. I had a second surgery, didn't trust it, but little by little, the therapist would say, please repeat to yourself, I'm a survivor, because I didn't know how to turn the dial down and the anxiety, and I would go from 0 to 1,000 in a second. Always, everything's going to be just.
Yeah, same. Right. Did you find that your anxiety was always like that, or did you find over time it got worse? Or?
Yeah, my husband, so I started meditating about 10 years ago, and it helped with freaking out or not. But my husband would say to me, like, it was one of a big problem in our marriage, that I would just go to the worst place all the time so fast.
Right.
I mean, if his finger hurt, I thought he was going to have his arm amputated.
I get that.
I mean, just the littlest things. I remember moving into my home, and there was a notice on our door, and it was from the water company. I thought, oh, they're going to turn the water off. I don't know why I thought that, but it was just so with the shoulder and the hip, and, no wonder the headaches. And when I wake up with the headaches, and this is what brought me to Nicole, I would just freak and cry and take every medicine and just scream out for my father, who had died, help me, begging. And it just would get worse and worse. And I had seen the documentary All the Rage. Did you see this?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's great. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So it led me to Nicole. And I remember the headaches would always come on one day that I had with my husband, because his schedule, we never saw each other. It was once a week. And I missed him, and I was just, it happened right. He got this particular job when my father passed away, and the hip, again, look, I'm just realizing now, the hip pain was so bad when my husband got this job, and I felt abandoned.
Definitely. Definitely.
Right. And I remember it was like 5 o'clock, my lights were out, I was in horrible pain with a headache, and I think I listened to one of Nicole's YouTubes, and I felt this wash of, like, I wanted her to be my mommy. And I remember hearing her voice, and I actually threw up. but I think that was like something triggered that even though I threw up, and that's, sorry, I don't want to freak anyone out. It was this reassurance that there's a community out there.
Yeah.
And that
it was a release,
day,
if anything.
Yes. And from that day, that was last December, it's amazing how all things she says and Dan Buglia, that I can actually practice indifference, and that the pain signals are less and I could trust it. So I don't have to rely on other people because I have the actual tools.
Right. That's super empowering, isn't it? Taking that power away from the white suits, the medical model.
And I journaled in a different way since finding Nicole. So I had so many years of journals that I actually threw away because I would read them and think like it made me sad. Whereas now with the journaling, and I just got the one where you can erase, I write, I rant on the page as she says. I don't feel guilty for hating my husband in the moment or whomever.
No, whoever it is, they're going to get it in there.
Yeah, right. And I don't need to tell them. I don't need to work it out with the whomever in that moment.
No, you don't need to resolve anything, right?
Right. It's so all these tools, and now I meditate in a different way. The others really helped me too. I was, there's a balance in drinking. for me, thankfully, I can have a glass of wine. I don't need to have 6 anymore. And so I wasn't drinking because every time I take a sip, I would get a headache. So I just assumed the headaches were from drinking. So now I'm so thankful I can have a glass of wine. I don't get a headache. I mean,
Did you used to have like food triggers and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and I do feel that, so I had gained a lot of weight. I went to a nutritionist when I was mid-30s, and I wanted to lose weight just from pure vanity. And I lost weight, and I kept it off for a long time. And then I gained it back about 10 years later, and it coincided with when I had to give up skiing and all my sports because of my hip. I could barely move. I didn't feel well. I had bad acid reflux, not knowing what it was for 5 years, exhaustion, heaviness in the eyes, burning, coughing for 5 years. And then I would go to, got colonoscopies and endoscopies, went to every gastro doctor. And then I went to a nutritionist because now I wanted to eat clean purely from, I need to feel, I can't stand not feeling well all the time. And within 2 weeks of going to the nutritionist, my acid reflux symptoms went away. And I was eating more smaller meals. I mean, the obvious.
Yeah.
I don't need to go eat, 6 spare ribs at 8:30 at night.
Exactly. Followed by a bag of chips. I mean, I do that from time to time. It happens from time to time, but you know, don't you? Yeah.
Right. I had never, drank a lot of water. So I started eating clean. I felt better quickly. And the kicker was, thankfully, I lost 25 pounds. And I've kept it off. But back to your question about the food. So I'm sometimes torn on this. When I do indulge, it's only been a couple of times, I get terrible heartburn. Like it happened the other night. My husband and I decided we were going to have this amazing pizza with ricotta cheese and it was all of a sudden I got this huge burning in my chest. And I mean, it was like, so I'm wondering if I was so mad at myself for eating it or
probably both.
Food.
Yeah, probably both.
Right.
Especially if you're eating clean and you have a massive like full-on fest like that, your body goes into a bit of shock anyway, doesn't it? But yeah.
Right.
If that's one of your symptoms, then it's gonna flare up when you get annoyed with yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. But the good news, again, from all of this work is realizing it and not freaking. The old me would have freaked. It would have gotten worse. So it's so true how that really works.
I think that's the
how
mantra
just to,
of the whole of TMS
that
recovery,
is
though, isn't it?
right,
Stop freaking out.
right. Yeah, that's it.
Just don't freak
And
out.
right.
That should
So
be the whole
yeah,
website, shouldn't it? Just that's it.
right.
Just stop freaking out.
Yeah.
Simple.
Right, right. It's all came together, and now I'm going to be 60 in a couple of months, and I've never felt better. I have
Amazing.
so much energy. I mean, I started biking again because I'm not scared of falling and dislocating something.
I love it.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to run to go skiing again, but yeah.
But didn't you find that it's like, not only have you learned how to, the tools that you need to kind of manage your pain if it does come along or whatever symptom it is you've got, but the amount of like self-awareness that this sort of work
Oh,
teaches you.
right. I mean, you never stop learning about
No.
your childhood. I mean, I used to get this was the other thing that came from this group. I always felt my body was betraying me. I mean, as
Yes.
so many people have written this, I said, how could I mean, I can't walk. How is my body betraying me? I mean, I just can't even believe what I lived through. I would say that I'm the healthiest person who always doesn't feel well.
Definitely. I totally resonate with that. And I see it and hear it all the time. Like, and I've done it myself, that, when you're suffering, and people like us as well probably blame ourselves more than, the regular people. But I think there's definitely an element of that in suffering, that it's like a battle with yourself. It's a battle with your,
Right.
not only you're battling against your body, but you think your body's battling against yourself, but
Right.
it's actually just trying to keep you safe. And that took me ages to figure out. Like, I'm still relatively new to me, that this kind of concept.
Right. And how we could self-soothe. And, I used to feel that I couldn't take Excedrin if I had a headache. And since this last year, if I wake up with a headache, I mean, first of all, they're not as often. They're not once a week anymore. You get them once a week, and then you live with the aftermath of it, or the fear of when's the next one going to come.
Right.
Constant. It ruined my life.
The fear is everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was also just proves the point of this. So if I do take an Excedrin, because that's my go-to, I don't beat myself up. I only take one dose, right? Yeah. And it goes away. This past summer, when we started biking again, I went to a park that was much hillier than I had been in a long time. And I woke up this morning. My husband and I had friends, and I had a terrible headache. And the difference was I wasn't going to take to the bed. I was going to, and I don't even want to use the word fight through it, but I was going to get through it.
Yeah.
And the way I got through it is I kept reassuring myself, you're okay, you're okay.
Self-compassion.
Okay, honey, talking like I'm the baby. And my husband were in the car, and it was really bad. And I was just like, you can go home anytime, Karen, you can go home. My husband was talking, and I was like, shut the fuck up. I can't deal with it. Like, stop talking. He always tells me, stop talking. And what's interesting is the minute I got on the bike, it went away.
Amazing.
I mean, I rode for 2.5 hours in a very hilly bike ride. The first time, after hip replacement and shoulders and
there's a lot of stuff to be fearful of, right?
Right. And I just really, it was kind of like, wow, this shit works.
Amazing. And that self-compassion element is huge.
Right.
It's the not freaking out and soothing what used to be freaking out.
Yes. Right.
Just treating yourself with a bit of love. I mean, it goes so far.
I know it's kind
of
everything. It's everything.
It's everything.
And I now, I don't hate my body. I don't hate myself. I mean,
it is everything. It changes. It changes absolutely everything. And there's a few examples that I've even noticed, and it's still, again, a relatively new thing to me that I'm still kind of working on. But as an example, a few days ago during one of my yoga classes, I got this funny, like, shooting pain in my rib, and I wasn't doing any particular move that would have pulled a muscle or anything. I know I haven't been practicing very often recently, but I was like, here we go. There'd been a few technical difficulties during the day. Some people couldn't log into the class, and it was like, a bit of a build-up of stresses, and then that happened. And usually, I mean, if it was like a symptom that is, something I've definitely done myself an injury, I would have freaked out. This is a new symptom to me. This is not a regular old back pain or a headache or whatever it is that I'm used to. And I just had a little pep talk with myself, like, you can do one of two things here. You can worry about this, book, see a doctor and worry between now and then that you've like broken a rib or something. Or you can just chill the fuck out over it.
I know. And you know what I'm hearing from you, and I have the same. Now it's fascinating. Now I have fun with it.
Yes. Let's test it.
Right? Like last March, so I was still kind of, even though I was an old patient of Sarno's, I was somewhat new, with Nicole. And last March, before this whole quarantine, my husband and I had a plan, cancel our vacation. His mother was very sick, and we went to visit her, and seeing her in hospice, I got my husband and his brother were talking, and inside I just was like, freak, shut up. Their energy was making me anxious. I pick up other people's anxiety.
So do I.
And I saw my mother-in-law, I went into the other room, and again, it's amazing how I don't freak. And it's like, that's the cure-all.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you get to know your triggers like you do. Like, you're so self-aware now.
Yes.
And noticing the triggers instead of running from them.
Right.
You learn so much.
Well, there's a fascination now versus fear.
Yes.
So
you're learning now still. Yeah.
Right. And it's almost fun. I don't want, but if you could look at it like, it's just, wow.
It is fascinating.
And every time I've had several instances in my life where I was really bad, and I can now associate it. We went, my brother-in-law's 60th birthday, we flew from New York to Tahoe. It was going to be a big party. My husband's family, who I adore and love, there are a lot of them, and they're very loud, and I have problems with noises.
Same.
And I woke up with probably one of the worst headaches I've ever had. And I was in bed all in the hotel room, and I didn't go to the party. And now looking back, I just couldn't stand to be around them. I love them, but they're loud and they're
it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Right.
And it's just kind of like, and then I was fine. So anytime I've had a day like that, it was always associated with, the other thing that Nicole talks about is we, pain community here, want to keep our lives simple. The pressure of having plans, I can't stand it.
Yeah, and also almost like swallowing perhaps the feeling that you had over the irritation of the family, or the irritation of the noise, or you like internalized all of that.
Right. Yeah, I do. This noise thing is a real thing, and it's called misophonia.
I've got it,
clicking,
for sure.
The gum chewing. I could laugh about it when I meet other people who have it. I don't feel so. I know. So how do we use this work to help that?
Don't freak out.
What?
Don't freak out.
I know. So when someone's clicking, chewing their gum, you can't live with headphones in your ears all day. How do we?
I've basically isolated myself from the majority of the world with earplugs in at night, noise cancelling headphones.
I don't go to the movies anymore.
Oh my God, no. What, because of the popcorn clicking? Or
yes, the paper crinkling. And when my husband and I were first dating, we were 3 months in, that honeymoon period, and we were on a long flight from Hawaii to New York, and all of a sudden someone's smashing paper in the back, and my head whipped around like The Exorcist, and I think he freaked like, what the hell did I get into here?
What do they just have, like a packet of peanuts or something?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I could go to a Broadway show and already think I don't want to go to the show because someone's going to have candy behind me.
For sure.
Or I remember too, we knew a hockey game and I would hear the guy cracking his gum like 5 rows up. I mean,
it's awful.
Right.
It's
we
awful.
can laugh about it, but in the moment, yeah. So I want to take,
I think it's, for me, it's gotten a little better. I'm a little bit more tolerant to noise, but it definitely seems like it might be related to the same sort of thing, the hypervigilance, the dangerousness of it. Yeah, fight or flight, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how there's very few other things in my life, very few, in fact, maybe none, that will make me feel so instantly full of rage than noise.
Right.
Like I could literally murder someone when that happens.
Yes. And I, again, meeting other people, like I'm not, I feel crazy, just like with my ailments or my symptoms or my physical, because my, biological mother killed herself. It was like, I worked so hard to not be that.
Yeah.
If anyone says you're crazy, you're a freak,
that's super triggering.
It's not nice to call anyone crazy, but some people use it in a, quote unquote funny,
in a jokey way,
Right. But when people see my reaction to noise or, headaches, it's like,
my partner thinks I'm nuts, basically. It's taken us a few years for me to be, try and convince him that it's like, it's not, I don't hate you eating your dinner. I don't hate you. It's not you. And it sounds super fake as well. It's like, it's not me, darling, it's you, but it's so true. Like, I don't hate you. Eat your fucking dinner. That's not the point. I just need to put these headphones on for a bit.
So, and my husband doesn't know this, and if he watches this video, so we speak every day at 5 o'clock, and he's eating his meal. And the newest thing, he scrapes the plate to get all the food. No. And so when he's talking, I put my fingers in my ears. I can't stand it. No. So I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to talk to him when he's eating. I can say to him, call me when you're done.
Call me later. Oh, this is a good idea as well that I've just thought about now that I might try myself. Does he take cutlery from your house to eat, or does he get that? Maybe plastic wouldn't make as much noise.
You know what? But this is the thing. How am I going to dodge all of this?
No, exactly. It's not a solution, is it?
So no one can open a bag.
Never,
but it's interesting. I can't stand when he flosses. I'm like, go floss somewhere else.
Wow, that's a really small kind of quiet noise. I never would have thought flossing even was a noise.
Yeah. The worst is, and I think this past year, since quarantine, I'm working from home, and I've never felt better. I feel like, me too. Selfishly, it's helped me turn down the dial to deal with all of this.
Definitely.
And get involved in this community in a way that I don't know I would have had if I was working in my office. And I work in an office, everyone interrupts. I don't know if this happens in other offices.
Yes.
No one lets you finish a sentence. The tapping of the keyboard.
The constant calls as well, the constant phone.
Well, I live with my earphones in,
and
I work, so sometimes people still talk to me knowing I mean, now these days, I think a lot of people wear earphones, but I'll have these big fuchsia earphones on my head, basically to say to everyone, get the fuck away, don't talk to me, don't look at me. So my boss, who I've been with forever, he'll start talking and I'll be like, yo, dude, I guess you don't see these fuchsia headphones.
These enormous headphones.
He's still talking. I just want to live in a silent world, but
me too. But you know what is really curious as well? Music's different.
Right.
But it depends on the noise, doesn't it? It depends on the type of noise. I don't mind white noise. I can fall asleep with the TV on.
Yes.
I don't mind all that kind of thing. But anything rhythmical or trying to be rhythmical that then ends up not being rhythmical, that's the worst. If it's like a dripping tap that isn't rhythmical, I'll make sure that it's like
papers crinkling, chewing, and keyboards are my
clock. I would say clock, Chewing one, clock two.
Chewing a banana.
Oh, Jesus. I think I might vomit. I'm going to go and just quick, excuse me while I vomit.
Yeah. But this community is so, this group and what people write, and there's no shame, and it's just, we're not crazy. And there's such hope. I want the people that are suffering, I don't want them to go 30 years or 40 years like I did. Now, I'm going to be 60 and I'm determined I'm going to be riding my bike at 88, and I don't need to live with these chronic pains, period.
No, you don't need to live with the fear and just that health anxiety is a big one, isn't it? Definitely.
Right. Yeah.
And it's no wonder though, is it really, knowing, especially from your upbringing and seeing your mum struggle so much and stuff. I mean, it just makes total sense that you would inherit part of her struggle, but also from the environment that you had.
Exactly. Yeah. And that the trauma really is locked in our bodies. And, I would think when Dr. Sarno would say, think psychological, I was in therapy so long and I was like, I am thinking psychological. But again, Nicole, I feel like there's something about the way in which she delivers her message where now we can rant on the page, delete it, throw it out, burn it.
Yeah.
It's releasing. If you don't release it, it stays in your body.
Right, exactly. It's described and taught in a way that is very understandable, but also very compassionately taught as well. Very much hand-holding, and she's there with you and helping you and stuff like that. I found when I first read Sarno's book, it was like reading an autobiography, obviously, like many people say, but I didn't really understand even what thinking psychologically really meant.
How do you get to Sarno?
I was recommended, actually, it wasn't even recommended to me. I struggled with this stuff for a good couple of years. It was about 3 years. And then I found a friend of mine from work who were very similar personalities, which is funny now I know, and I can see that. She posted something on Facebook saying that she had backache and she was done with it, or she'd had to cancel some event or something like that. And a friend of hers commented on her Facebook post saying, you have to read this book. And I was like, what the fuck? Talking about? Read a book. I spent thousands on doctors and chiropractors, and I want to have surgery. I want to find a surgeon that will actually give me surgery, and nobody would. And I read the book, and it was like, oh my fucking God, how on earth is this real?
And it worked for you soon after?
I definitely felt some kind of like, well, it was probably more emotional relief, but then a knock-on effect of like the fear factor had died down. I went back to doing gentle yoga and stuff like that. But I kind of, similar to what you said, like I understood the teachings of Sarno and stuff like that, but then I didn't really have any other resources that I was using. I read the book, time went on, I went back to the chiropractor. I still did a lot of the physical treatments and tried everything. I was just trying everything, basically. I was kind of sick of it.
Yeah.
And then I think it was just researching on YouTube or somewhere to try and find some more of Sarno's work, to try and find some lectures or something like that. I stumbled across Nicole Sachs' YouTube channel, and then it snowballed into finding all of her work. And then I got to understand what that meant, like that your emotional world pretty much governs your physical world.
And the doctors keep us so sick. I mean, the second surgery I was having on my hip, I was being wheeled in, and I don't know that my back had ever had an MRI or X-ray, and the surgeon came up to me, literally, I'm looped out of my mind, and he said, do you ever have back pain? And I said, no, not in 30 years. And he said, I want to show you your X-ray. It's so twisted. And I said, don't show me the X-ray. I don't need to see it.
Nice pretty.
And my husband saw the X-ray. And so the point is
but you're glad you didn't look at the X-ray. That would have made you frightened. Yeah, it's no point.
Exactly. And I don't have backache, and I don't know what my X-ray looks like, and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter at all.
Right.
I'm sure everybody's back X-ray looks crazy, you know.
Exactly.
That's what
And
backs look like.
Yeah. Right. Right. And I
So
just,
so now you've been doing the work since about December, you said, doing Nicole Sachs journal speak work.
Yes. Yep.
And that helps you. How often do you do that now? Do you do that just for maintenance or just when you need it, or what?
Maintenance, yeah, the beginning, I think, and I dreaded it and dread it still. Writing on the paper makes me angry. The paper, I fight with the paper and the pen and the noise of it, and then I do a voice.
But that's better than tapping on the keyboard, isn't it? Marginally.
I do it all, and then so now I just got the Rocket Book.
The wipe clean one.
Right. So that's cool. The best. So I did it in the beginning. I feel like I have, I think Dr. Dan Ratner said like a TMS brain or background on, in the background. So, the other night something happened work-wise and I was like furious and I wasn't scared of feeling the fury.
Yes.
And so I didn't wake up with a headache and I felt fine and that's I felt great. My rage. Yeah.
I mean, but that's life, isn't it? People just make you get pissed off, and that's normal. And I think it's become so kind of normalized that you're not supposed to feel rage. You're not supposed to get angry. You're not supposed to get pissed off. So that's why all this shit fucking happens in the first place.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I journal.
So you use it for that, yeah.
Yep, I meditate. And so I guess the journaling is just a couple of times a week, if that, maintenance.
Yeah.
When the pain.
When you need it.
Right. And meditation, walking, one day I was at work and it was early on finding Nicole and Dan Buglia, and I had a really bad headache. And normally I would have taken a cab to the train station. And instead I walked. It was a really cold, damp, yucky day. I bundled up and I walked. And, as you do things, your body responds to those signals. Yes. So I wasn't freezing. I took the walk in a dingy, rainy New York day. And by the time I got home an hour later, my headache was gone.
Amazing. And you're teaching your body new things, aren't you? Yes, teaching your brain safe things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So you've just got a brand new life now, like you get to start over with all that stuff.
I know.
Find what you love again.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And what you learn about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Your tone, again, it doesn't hurt that you're from the UK and your accent's beautiful. But there's just a soothing about, I remember your podcast early on with Nicole. Your story. I'm going to go back and listen again.
Yeah, I think a friend of mine actually that's been helping with some of this work, she said that she wants to maybe interview me on this series so I can kind of do. I mean, I've done my story a couple of times, but she said that as a kind of TMSer, she's got a few more questions she wants me to answer. So I might do an episode of my own one here.
Of your own on your
my own story on this, yeah.
Oh, please do.
So,
yes.
So she will interview me.
Good.
That'll be a different way around.
Okay, good. Love it.
So I think, I'm sad that it's like such a long kind of story for you, that you didn't have those tools when you really needed them, even though you got to meet Dr. Sarno. So that was, a bonus. So, but
maybe I would have had worse pain if I wasn't able to call him. Maybe I would have had the toe surgery.
Yeah, for sure. I mean 100%.
99.999% of ailments are TMS. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. My partner's always saying to me, like, babe, not everything's TMS, No, but it is. Maybe the cat's got TMS. The cat's sick on the front carpet. Maybe the cat's got TMS. Okay. Where you're at now, then, you've come through all of those symptoms. You're just using your tools for maintenance as and when you need them. You're still learning about all this stuff. I still see you active in the support groups and stuff, helping other people, which is amazing because you've kind of you've recovered fully yourself. It's so nice for you to stick around and do that. Right. What would be your main piece of advice for people that are suffering, that don't really know where to turn or what to do? Or
just to trust this work. It works, it works, it works. You know, someone said recently, you can be hurting, but it's not harmful. So whatever your catchphrase is, and you know, just first knowing this works, like there's hope. There's hope. I mean, I've gotten through so many things, and I come through and I'm okay. And you know, for the people new into this or suffering, like I just want to hug them. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then not freaking, and then little by little it builds on itself. And if you can take a 5-minute walk when you're really in a bad way, you know, don't beat yourself up. Don't feel your body's betraying you.
Befriending
take the
yourself.
Excedrin if you need it.
Yes.
Right. Meditate. People say they can't meditate, we all can. 3 minutes a day.
Exactly. It's learning, isn't it? It takes time to get, well, not get good at this stuff, but to become comfortable with meditation. And like you said, I think that has a lot to do with just beating yourself up about not being good enough and not being able to do it. And I'll be the one that won't heal. And I hear that quite a lot. Of people saying, like, you know, I will be all right, won't I? Like, you know, you're giving me hope. And I think there's a level of a tiny bit of belief that doesn't really exist until you finally start feeling pain-free.
Right.
Even
and
if
now
you do
I know
believe.
that, and the new pains that, you know, if they're going to come up in life, like I have the tools.
Exactly. Exactly. Amazing. It's almost like a miracle story, really, isn't it? It's like so unbelievable.
I know. It's
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.
And you, my darling. It's so great that you took the time to share your story. And I will keep in touch with you and see how you're getting on. Yeah, and it's always lovely to see you in the groups. And I will send you a copy of this to see for yourself, so you can get annoyed by all the noises.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll speak to you soon, my darling. Thank you. Bye, love. Karen Isaacs-Goldman from New York. What a lovely lady, and such a long story. But I hope that you can find something that inspires you in this story, or that resonates with your story, and just take a little bit of our own belief and borrow it for a while if you're feeling unsure of whether TMS will work for you and that kind of thing. There's thousands and thousands of people, probably millions now, that have recovered from TMS, from such a different, like, random myriad group of symptoms. But we all kind of suffer very similarly in the same ways, similar personalities, similar sort of fun. Now we can look at funny things that we get stressed about, health anxiety, all that kind of stuff. But I think that mantra, we can all take something from that mantra today: stop freaking out. I think that should be the TMS mantra now forever. Thank you for watching. If you would like to submit your story to come on one of these interviews, please go to mytmsjourney.com/stories, and you can send me a message from there. All the other episodes are there on my website, My TMS Journey, or also listed in YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on all the things. You'll find me as Danny Fagan or as My TMS Journey. And yeah, I think that's everything I have to say. If you want any more information about any of this work that I do, just reach out to me on social media or via my website, and I will hopefully be able to help you or point you in the right direction. I look forward to seeing you again, and I hope you took something from this episode. I will see you on the next one. Bye.